and were filmed were, well, they were pretty extraordinary. Whether Kenneth Anger was there, I don't know. I have no first-hand evidence on that.
Right, and there's a fascinating photograph, too, of where Kinsey was in a classroom with little kids, and I think he passed around a dead rabbit or something. Are you familiar with that?
No, but again, very little surprises me about Kinsey.
Yeah.
What does surprise me is that no one has really taken notice of this. It's kind of the Emperor's New Clothes thing, isn't it? You know, it's the little somewhere there's a little boy, and it's either Judith or me saying, "Look, this guy, this guy isn't wearing clothes. This is a deeply dangerous man."
And now, why do you think that is? Do you think that there's a force behind the media that has an agenda that they want to get out, or you just think it's incompetence, it's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that? What have you come up with after all these years?
Again, I always, as I said to you before, I try not to impute motive, but what I think is you can do, and you unquestionably do, is show that there is a fairly clear connection between Kinsey and Hefner. I mean, Hefner describes it himself, and Hefner set out to proselytize all of the Kinsey agenda and all the Kinsey message. And that fed into a time where the world was ready to hear that. There was a genuine need for sexual liberation, in my view, just not of adults abusing children.
But it does seem to be a byproduct because of the sexual revolution. Because then we have more acceptance now of that kind of thing. The group NAMBLA came out of that movement and stuff.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of movements. It's what I've in other books I've written about these, and loosely I think you can call it the Pedophile International, the Pedophile International, and it's a fairly aggressively vocal group of pedophiles who demand pedophile liberation. And there are two key elements to that. The first is they always cite Kinsey. They always cite this great conclusion from scientific data, not scientific data, that children are sexual from birth. And they hitched themselves onto sort of classic entryist tactics, the legitimate sexual revolution.
Right.
And so they portrayed themselves as being as much victimized as gay men were victimized. And people fell for that. People fell for that in the 70s and 80s. And to some extent, they still do. But
now, Tim, we can't ignore this because here you have like your whole life. You got the Franklin story with the Boys Town. And it reaches the politics in Washington, D.C. with powerful politicians involved in an interest in sex with children. Then you have Aquino, his allegations against him. Here's a guy at the highest level of the military. And you have all this, and then you have this social almost programming, an agenda to say, well, this is all okay. Let's cover up for Kinsey's behavior. We legitimize Kinsey. Now, we can't look at all this. I know you don't want to come to conclusions, but we can't look at all this and just say, well, this is all by accident.
No, but one of the things that I've learned, if I've learned anything, is that you should never look for a single reason for anything.
Okay.
Generally, in my experience, when you try and find a reason, what you actually are looking at is a fairly tangled mat of threads that have come together and coalesced. Can threads coalesce? I mix metaphors, but that's what I think you get what I'm getting at.
Yes.
And again, you may or may not be aware that over here at the moment there is a great deal of excitement and indeed a couple of official inquiries into whether there have been very powerful VIP pedophiles protected within Parliament and the judiciary and the security services. Now, those allegations are being investigated. I would be surprised if they come to any firm conclusion, because the evidence is long gone. But it shouldn't really surprise anyone that some members of the judiciary, or some members of the security services, or some members of the Houses of Parliament are sexually attracted to children, because it cuts across all professions, jobs, classes, religions. You know, you're going to find that anywhere.
And you don't think there's a higher percentage of those in power that have this bizarre interest?
I've not seen any evidence which would support that, and I'm not sure that you could ever find that evidence. And that's not because it's impossible. It's hidden because these people are allegedly powerful or in positions of power. It's because, as a society, we do so little research into paedophilia. We do so little work in working with the men who abuse children to find out why they did it, what drove them to do it. We basically just say they're bad guys and we lock them up. And if you don't talk to them and you don't listen and study and try and understand, that doesn't mean you have to approve, but you do need to understand, then I don't think you can ever find out enough to come to a conclusion about the prevalence of it within any social group or strata.
You know, here in the States, we don't even lock them up very long. The average child rapist gets 8 years, and they serve about 3.5 years of an 8-year sentence for molesting a child here in the States.
If you think that's bad, brace yourself.
I don't want to hear it. Go ahead.
You don't want to hear it?
Go ahead.
I worked on a story last year. It was a child pornography case. I wrote a book about child pornography back in 1990, so it's been a long-standing issue that I've worked on.
Okay.
This was a young man in the north of England was prosecuted for possession of child pornography. He had apparently been dealing, but they couldn't prove that, and possession is viewed as less serious than trading in it.
Right.
But when the police got hold of his computers, the material they found, one of the films showed a young girl, an underage girl, being abused and being killed. This is not me saying this. This is what the police said, this is what the prosecutor said, and this is what the judge said when this young man was finally prosecuted. That's what it showed. Two things, and the two reasons I got involved in the story. The young man in question, the sentence he received was 8 months.
Wow.
The second reason I got involved was that the victim and her abuser, killer, were both identifiable. We, under our international obligations in Britain, we work very closely with ICE, and we are meant to send that material because ICE has the best victim and perpetrator facial identifying software in the world. For 16 months, that tape sat on the shelf in a local police station. No one did anything with it.
Well, and so what has come about the case now?
Nothing. The guy is out. He served 4 months. After I published this story, police said, oh, yes, we will send it on. Now, I'm hoping that it has arrived with ICE, and I'm hoping that ICE are doing something with it, because...
Moving means welcome to the Frontier Fiber neighborhood. With our high-speed Frontier 500 meg fiber optic internet, share video tours of your new place with upload speeds up to 25 times faster than cable. Just $39.99 a month plus taxes and fees, and only $10 per month Wi-Fi router service fee. Visit frontier.com/fiber for upload speed comparison and full offer details. Frontier, don't go it alone. Limited time offer. Max speeds or wired speeds. Wi-Fi speeds may vary. Activation, internet infrastructure surcharges, taxes, and other fees are subject to change. Frontier terms and conditions apply.
I always had a passion for style, but I never thought I could turn it into a career. Until I found Florida Technical College. Thanks to FTC, I earned my diploma in cosmetology. I'm Angelica Bermudez, and I'm a hairstylist.
See why Florida Technical College has been the choice of people like you since 1982. Learn more about our beauty programs, including cosmetology, aesthetics, and more at ftccollege.edu or call 888-981-9707. FTC, your partner in success.
Whatever else, even though the victim appears to be dead, the perpetrator almost certainly isn't. And if he's doing that, he's not going to stop doing that. And someone needs to arrest him.
Again, just horrific, and another terrifying story.
Yeah, welcome to my life.
Yeah. Now, you're over there in the UK. I'm sure you're familiar with this story about these two Hampstead children making these allegations on his videotape. What do you make of that?
I've seen briefly reports of that. I have absolutely no knowledge about it.
Right. And again, it seems to be that some people have run with it, and others are just poo-pooing it and dismissing it right from the gate. Two things that you detest.
Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't looked at it. I haven't investigated it, but what frustrates me is, and this is just a generic problem, is there is so much noise. There are two sides shouting at each other in all of these cases. And instead of doing the logical and obvious thing, which is to say, well, what's the evidence? Let's have a look at the evidence. And if it stacks up, then, okay, we've got a case. If it doesn't stack up, we haven't. But because the debate, the public debate, consists of people from either side of the argument shouting at each other, then the serious, quiet, sensible forensic investigation really doesn't get done.
Oh, okay. Right, you're right. It seems to be like almost in everything that comes up nowadays, there's this immediate rush to judgment. And people setting up sides. Now, what do you make of, as someone with your experience and your sobriety in this field, what do you make of these YouTube investigators and these YouTube documentaries that are being put out like almost on the fly with some of the most wildest accusations out there? You must be terrified when you see that.
No. It's going to happen. I mean, you have to be practical and realistic about this. Okay. This is an internet-connected world that people are going to do this. It's pretty cheap for people to go and make brief films or video clips. And in this globalized world, there's no way you're going to stop that. But then, we've pretty much always had that sort of thing going on. It's just that it's been amplified now. For my money, that's not the real problem. I think it's a distraction. Okay. The real problem is that the police, the law enforcement here, is grossly underfunded and undertasked in dealing with child sexual abuse. Grossly. I mean, it is spectacularly underfunded and undertasked. And secondly, that the newspapers and television stations that I grew up working for and who supported the sort of investigations that we've talked about don't do that anymore. And what that does is it